people, it was sort of adrenaline-loaded innings, but he was positive. He looked as if he had the ability to score runs and be positive, and he backed himself. You're just
sorry, so
to relay the news.
I think I'm just hearing 1:30 start. I think that's what I heard over the loudspeaker. So toss at 1 o'clock and play will start at 1:30. That's very good news. And I must say, I turned up the ground this morning thinking there wouldn't be any playing at all today.
So did I.
Yeah, so play's going to start at 1:30 and there's not any more showers. It's a bit dark away to the right hand side where the weather's coming from.
It's due to be showering this afternoon, but at the moment, as you say, it looks reasonable.
It doesn't look too bad. Anyway, sorry, continue.
To answer your question, results of course are important, but it's how the player performs or how the coach performs as well, the manner in which he handles it. And I think probably what didn't help Peter Moores in the end was a couple of things. Firstly, I think he sounded a bit confused sometimes in press conferences in the way he explained defeats or what had happened. And secondly, I think he lacked international experience, and I think the fundamental requirement for coaching, apart from all the things that Paul Farris mentioned, like being a good listener, being a good observer, being able to time when you say things to players, being able to adapt your methods to different players, I think the fundamental thing is to keep ahead of the game, and you have to be able to have a lot of versatility and a lot of innovation and imagination in how you approach players, and that means playing or coaching around the world just in the same way as players improve their ability by going and playing abroad, either on tour or playing for an overseas club or stateside abroad, and you improve your game that way by playing in different conditions with different players. So the same applies to coaching. If you go and coach in Australia, or you coach in the IPL, or in any other kind of format around the world, you learn. You work with different players, you work with different coaches, you pick up stuff. And what the general view now, actually, amongst the sort of coaching fraternity is the players are the people who evolve all the time. They're always bringing in new ideas. The game, the players are the university. The coaches are in a way the students, and they're learning all the time by travelling abroad and picking up all sorts of little things and then passing them on to their players. And that's what I think Peter Moores lacked. He has been a very good coach in England, excellent, and he's a lovely guy, but he hasn't perhaps got that worldly perspective, and that's what Andrew Strauss said about him, really.
So when you talk about international experience, you don't mean he hasn't played international cricket.
It's not a matter of
it's about coaching all around the world.
I mean, if you look at Trevor Bayliss and Paul Farbrace, for two examples, neither of them were exceptional professional cricketers. They played a bit. I played with Farbrace for Middlesex. He was an enthusiastic wicket keeper. He was a very good observer. He would make little points to you as a bowler about things that you were doing, but he was very subtle. He was very tactful about how he said things, so he was always marked out to be someone who could be a coach. And Trevor Bayliss clearly is the same. Hasn't been an exceptional player, but he has coached abroad. He's worked, for instance, in the IPL. He's worked for the Sri Lanka team with Farbrace, and you just learn so much from working with people like Mahela Jayawardene and Kumar Sangakkara, and as Farbrace said, Murali as well. Just learning about the different ways that international players go about things in different countries, and that brings your own coaching experience. Hugely, it makes it much more rich.
Yeah. What about the point about if you are an international player, you've played the game. People talk Justin Langer's going to be the next Australian coach. When players go into the dressing room, they see Justin Langer. They know that he's been through it all. He's done it all, and he's come through the furnace, if you like, of international cricket. They're talking about Langer being the next Australia coach after Darren Lee. As a player, when you walk into a dressing room, do you not think, I trust this bloke's judgment more because he's done it?
But I think you do initially. Certainly, the players that have been exceptional have an advantage to start when they come in fresh to a team, because yes, the players that they're dealing with know this person's reputation, are impressed by their ability, might even be slightly starstruck actually at times. But a coach can win people over by going about his business in a sensible, an efficient, a productive way, by being an easy person to work with, just by his manner and also by his results. And obviously with someone like Bayliss, who's got his team from Sri Lanka to the World Cup final in 2011, he's had a very good, he won the IPL twice with Kolkata Knight Riders, so he's got success, and that will bleed through to the players. They will appreciate that. It might take a bit longer to actually understand his methods and to give him credibility, but there's no doubt danger with having a great player as a coach is that firstly they can be intolerant of people who struggle, who have perhaps mental issues, that sort of that their concentration isn't maybe that good or whatever, and also they might not be able to really relate to lesser individuals and sort of be able to sort of help them work. I think it helps massively to have had failure in your career and to obviously had success as well at times, and to be able to understand how you got from one to the other. And I think the problem with great players, particularly someone like Justin Van possibly, although he's a great student of the game, but let's say you make Ian Botham or David Gower or somebody like that a head coach. The problem with many great players is they've had an ability to erase the bad stuff out of their head. I mean, why they were so good is because they had this incredible self-belief, and they just erased anything bad. So they can't use any of that sort of failure to help anyone else because they can't remember it. So I think the perfect balance is someone who's been a very good player but who can relate to people who've been unsuccessful too, and how they can communicate that. But it doesn't have to be that you have to be a great player to be a great coach, as has been proved by Duncan Fletcher, many others that have been exceptionally good at their jobs and haven't been particularly good players or exceptional players.
I'm just trying to think of top class players who became good coach. I mean, Andy Flower was a superb
absolutely
cricketer.
And I mean, I'm sure he was a superb coach. In the end, perhaps he just went past his sell-by date, but he was a superb coach for a long time, probably still is. And Stuart Lancaster, in other sports, for instance, another one. There are many in rugby. Obviously, football, Alex Ferguson, Mourinho, there are any number.
Yeah.
So it's about being a student of the game. And what Paul Farbrace touched on there, I think, is interesting. That a lot of these players are very young. They've hardly played much cricket. They're learning on their feet in international circles. What the coach is his sort of eyes and ears, his experience. I remember when I first played age 21, playing in a club match, and some 40-year-old club bowler said to me, good bowler said to me, I wish I knew now when I was your age. I wish I knew what I know now when I was 20. And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? But a 40-year-old who has been around and played around the world, and coached around the world, and worked with different players, has so much useful little bits of experience to pass on to a 21-year-old who's just only come just out of his nappies in a sort of metaphorical sense. That he can just pass on all these little tips, which must help. And I mean, to give you an example of how Farbrace works, here's two players in the England team. I can tell you this: Ian Bell and Joe Root, right? Totally different. Ian Bell, 100 odd tests, 7,000 test runs, 20 centuries, fantastic batsman. He needs every day constant reassurance. Every day you have to tell him you're a fantastic player. He'll be out there in the middle, probably at some point in the next 10 minutes, sort of just angling around for someone to come up, and Ian Botham or whoever, don't worry about last test, you'll be fine, Belly, you're a fantastic player. He needs people to say that to him all the time, and when he practices, he has to have 10 from over the wicket short of the leg, 10 from over the wicket full of the leg, 10 from round the wicket short, 10 from around the wicket full. He has a sort of particular routine of practice, and he doesn't feel complete unless he's been through that absolutely meticulous practice routine at a specific time of the day. He needs to know exactly when that is. Compare that with Joe Root, who has a fifth of Bell's experience. He's played 20 tests. He wanders into the nets, has a little kind of has a hit. I watched him on Wednesday practicing. He doesn't need any of this reassurance, and he just goes out there and plays. And that's how a coach has to deal with those two personalities in completely different ways.
Okay, more from Simon in just a moment. The two captains are out there for the toss. Jonathan Agnew is out there as well, in the sunshine as well. That's the good news from Headingley.
Yeah, chilly sunshine. Good afternoon, everyone. But at least we do have a gap in the clouds. And quite actually, looking over to my right-hand shoulder, where Wales is coming from, quite a substantial gap too. So I've just got the teams. England are unchanged. So Lyth, Cook, Bell, Root, Stokes, Butler, Ali, Broad, Wood and Anderson. One change for New Zealand, we talked about this earlier, didn't we? Luke Longkey is coming into the side to keep wicket, in fact. Watchling will play as a batsman. Ronke will keep wicket, as we know, plays a lot of shots. So they've gone for a sort of a positive input there, as it were. Victor they're replacing a bowler with a batsman, which is interesting. The pitch is definitely green, but it's also definitely dry. So, having talked to Stuart Broad and James Anderson, who are loosening up and marking out their run-ups and so on, they were totally undecided, really, about what they would choose to do. So, we shall see, Victor. Who have you been talking to?
He didn't tell me when they were going to bat and bowl, but I've been talking to, I think he must be the fourth umpire, which is Neil Mallender.
Yes.
Who
played here, of course, with a remarkable success.
Well, exactly, 1992, and I remember coming up, and he was the sort of bowler, this is a digression, but he was the sort of bowler who worked better, despite it being his England debut, with a few pints inside him. And I did my duty for England by insisting that he came out with me and had a couple of beers before his Test debut game.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Well, he's here. We're waiting. The captains are lined up and ready to go. So we'll bring you the toss, of course, and then we'll get the chance to speak to both captains. We've got an aeroplane coming towards Leeds Bradford, going right over the top.
I think it is one of those instinctive tosses where you've got a rough idea.
We're good to go. Let's have a listen.
Been called by Brendan. So it is England who won the toss. Alistair, what are you going to do and why?
We're going to have a bowl first.
Ah, there we go. Well, that's they're going to bowl first. So that'll get Stuart Broad moving. There we go. He's got one of his beanies on as well. I'm not sure it's quite beanie weather, but he's got one on anyway. And off he trudges to go and strap his boots on and go and bowl first. There's a smile, there's a bit of a smile there, a bit of a shrug of the shoulders. You do have to bowl sometimes, Stuart. So go get your boots on.
It's not quite let me at him, but it will do.
It isn't an easy one because it's chilly, and you normally go in terms of movement with a bit warmer than this.
Well, 2 hours ago you'd have said, oh, definitely bowl first. It was dank and grey here. But suddenly the wind's got up, there's blue sky, and as you're right, it doesn't feel like a swingy day. If the sun stays out, it might not be too bad for batting.
No. Alistair Cook's finished chatting over there. He's looking round vaguely. We're over here. We're over here, Alistair. He's just looking for a bearing. Here we go. And across the pitch he comes, and we'll have a very quick chat with the skipper. Not necessarily an easy one, that Alistair, to decide, or was it? Perhaps it was.
No, it wasn't, because it's quite dry underneath. But Headingley now and over the last few years hasn't broken up a huge amount over time, so we don't think that's going to be right. It is a little bit dry, but the Yorkshire boys tell me it gets flatter and flatter with a couple of heavy rolls.
Good. And you'll be able to name an unchanged side, which is good.
Yeah, it is. You know, the guys came and did well, and they pulled up well, so hopefully we can start them.
Okay. And a general really good feeling after what happened at Lord's too.
Yeah, it was a fantastic test match. Both sides we give credit for it. We were lucky to get the right end of the result. We're going to work hard now and try and do the same kind of thing.
Good luck, Alistair. There we go. Thanks for talking to us. Off we go, starting at 1:30 then. 78 overs per side. Tea, for all his words, at 4:10. In case you are clock watching, Brendan McCullum is going to, I think, wander over here now. Wearing a rather nice, smart new pair of boots as well. Another smart. Well, Brendan, would you have bowl first?
No, I wasn't sure, to be honest. I think whatever you do first, you've got to do well, I guess. And the beauty of us batting first is we get the opportunity to play from in front of the game, so we've got to make sure we do it well. If we bat well, then we'll give ourselves a good chance to dictate terms early in the test.
And the change with Luke Ronke coming in, could you explain that? So attacking batsman?
Yeah, well, Corey Anderson didn't scrap up fit, unfortunately. So BJ Watling, he's not quite capable of keeping, but we think he's fine to be able to bat in the field. So Luke Ronke comes in at 7. Exciting opportunity for him. Anytime a guy makes his debut, it's obviously a special day for him, but also those people support him all the way through too. So we're excited for Ronks, and hopefully he has a memorable test debut.
Very positive cricket. Coming out hard today.
We'll try and play the style that gives us our best chance. We've got some hard work to do inside those first couple of sessions. It may go around a little bit, but I think with the wicket being a little bit dry, if we can do it well at the start, we'll give ourselves some good opportunities later on in the test match, especially with what we think is a half decent spin attack that will pose some good threats to England if we can get a good score on the board.
Good luck. Thanks for talking to us, Brendan. Appreciate that. And there we go, one change then, and that does explain it. So they're not entirely happy about Watling's ability to keep wicket. So they won't want Latham to do it again. So hence Ronke, he's played a few shots.
Well, he does. I mean, he's not played a test match, but he is in the McCullum style of batsmanship. So some more fireworks, potential fireworks in that order at number 7. That's one way of looking at it. Another,
They're rolling down though, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they basically went through the Lord's test with just the 4 bowlers, and maybe that hurt them. I think probably that Moore Williamson might be in order to help that seam attack out. But it was an impressive seam attack. I mean, Henry, remember, was making his debut at Lord's. Looked the business to me. Bolt was terrific, actually. Bolt's exploits at Lord's kind of got hidden by everything else, but he took 9 wickets in that match. Far more economically than any of the other keepers. He was terrific. Whether it's going to swing for him today is chilly out here.
It is. This is not been at the end of May.
In fact, he shouldn't be bowling today unless England bat very, very poorly. So we're off and running. I mean, 2 hours ago we looked all grim and dismal and thought we were going to be here till about 5 o'clock and not see any play, but it looks a good wicket. There is a fair bit of grass on it, but it is dry, and I suspect from what you were talking to McCullum about is that he would have batted first, or he's certainly happy to bat
unsure.
Yes.
Yeah. Unsure. So, we'll break up from down here, the various gangs of television crew and so on, sort of loosening up, going on over to our right-hand side, pitch inspections and all that sort of thing. But it is a pretty bracing breeze. There's a dark patch of cloud heading up from Deep Square Lake, so that keeps away. I think we'll be very lucky if we get through unscathed from now on. But it's 78 overs, tea at 4:10. We can play all the way through to 7:30. We should have some gloves on that here, I think. And
Yeah.
we'll be warm there. We'll be in the commentary box. So just the wish those teams to get England unchanged from Lords with Lythe, Cook, Barrett, Bell, Root, Stokes, Buckler, Ali, Broad, Wood and Anderson, and then New Zealand at 1 change. Guptill, Latham, Williamson, Taylor, McCullum, Ronke, Watling. We've actually got 3 keepers in this one, if you think about it. Craig, Southey, Henry and Bolt. England have won the toss. They put New Zealand into bat. We're heading for the warmth of the commentary box, where Simon Mann is, of course, already well positioned. Simon.
Thank you, John. This is 11 degrees on my weather app these days. So it's a cool day for late May. Still about 3 wicket keepers, actually 4 wicket keepers. It's Latham kept
kept very well
at Lords. There's McCullum who's kept,
Yes.
Ronke and then Watling as well.
I think McCullum probably doesn't have any keeping gloves in his bag anymore,
No.
actually, because he's not interested in keeping, is he?
Not at all. Not with the back problems that he's suffered. So New Zealand will bat first when play starts at 1:30. We've been talking about coaching. We listened to a fascinating interview with Paul Farbrace, and Simon Hughes is still here. Simon, how much can a really good coach improve a team in terms of its overall results? Well, it is ultimately about the players and going out there and performing.
I think it's about the right emphasis. I think they can influence them a lot. And if you look at England, for instance, in that last Test match, I mean, I talked to Paul Farbrace about where England's spirited play came from, and he said they sat around, for a couple of days before the Test match, and probably even a few days even before that, and they talked about the importance of showing your skill, not of fighting and battling and all those kind of quite emotive words, but about enjoying your skill and showing off your ability and enjoying the game and playing the game, rather than these sorts of rather intense words which have been thrown around before. In other words, let the spirit free, if you like. There's a license to just show why you got picked for England and how good you are. And that's what England did on the field. They played with this vibrant spirit, this freedom, this expression, self-expression. And I think a lot of that has come from the coaching staff, who are, I'm sure that they began that process during the Caribbean series after the World Cup. You could see some little seeds growing in that Caribbean Test series. I know England should have won and didn't, but there were some good performances within that. Just to play someone like Chris Jordan fielding at slip and anticipating the edge, slip against the spin, going the wrong way, but still catching it just because he's got brilliant instincts, and celebrating things like that. Joe Root, I think he is the epitome for me of England playing with a smile, playing with enjoyment. Even when something goes wrong on the field, you can see him smiling, quite enjoying the adversity, just being kind of open-minded, I suppose, really. And even though England's first 2 days of that last Test at Lords were not particularly good, obviously 30 for 4 after an hour, and there were all sorts of little things that went wrong initially. New Zealand got a 500 score. There was no backward step, and I'm sure a lot of that comes from and somebody like Paul Farmer, he won't take the credit for it, and that's the nature of coaches, that they don't like the credit. They stand, almost inscrutable behind their sunglasses on the balcony or inside the dressing room. They don't like to kind of give large sort of protestations of performance and proclamations and so on. They tend to stay in the background. But I'm sure that a lot of that came from him. He's experienced, he's been around the world, he's worked with the Mahela Jayawardenas and the Kumar Sangakaras and the Muralis, fantastic cricketers. And he's brought their enjoyment, their spirit of the game to England, and it's paid off.
Play's going to start at 1:30. Graham Swan is here as well.
Hello, Simon.
Hello, Graham. Lovely to see you.
Hello, Graham.
I've missed you.
Yeah, since it's to Auckland. And we've been talking about coaching. How important was the head coach to you as a cricketer in the dressing room? Or do you just feel, well, look, I've been picked to play for England, I know my game, don't need them at all?
Well, I think it varies from player to player. A good coach, in my opinion, is a very good manager. He knows how to get the best out of his players, because the team talk, the overall sort of ethos that the coach gives, that has to be a very general thing, but he has to have individual relationships and know that he can sit down with you, put his arm around someone's shoulder, or ignore someone completely, or cajole someone. Every single player has a different method of geeing themselves up, relaxing them and letting them express themselves. So for me, Andy Flower's magnificent for me, because he said, well, I don't have to worry, you know what you're doing, just go and do it. And that's what I wanted. I hated coaches who tried to force their opinions on you, say you should try this, you should do something differently. Leave me to do what I do, and I'll take care of myself. But some players do need an arm around their shoulder. They need to be told how great they are all the time. They need, massage, their egos massaging. It's not physical massage from a coach.
I mentioned Ian Bell as being an example of that he is someone who, for better or worse, needs constant reassurance.
He does, he really does. And there's people like Jimmy Anderson who doesn't need it. He gets uncomfortable with it, and if someone sits down next to him and goes, oh mate, I thought you bowled really well, you see him squirming in his chair. He's not comfortable with the praise coming. So, for me, Andy Flower was exceptional for that. He had individual relationships. I don't know what you might have heard from one particular individual. He was magnificent at doing that, and I believe that when we were doing well, when we were number one in the world, what you saw was players completely at ease with their place inside, their role in the team, and how they were going to go about achieving the success that got them there in the first place. So,
actually, you can tell from just listening to Andy Flower when he did press conferences, every pressman had their question, and some of the questions were stupid, really, and some of them were great. But however the question was phrased, however good or bad it was, he listened to it, took a bit of time, and gave it a sensible answer. And that's obviously what he was like with players too. He treated every player differently, and as Paul Farber said in that interview, it's really about understanding what players need and trying to give them everything that they need, sitting back or giving them full encouragement, or whatever it is, they will try and provide it.
One question, just a very specific question on the Trevor Bayliss appointment, is worth getting your thoughts on before you go. I think there was a feeling for a while it was going to be Jason Gillespie.
Yeah.
What happened there? Did you know?
Well, I don't really. I think that, I know there was a sort of a little area which Andrew Strauss was particularly keen on, was for England to improve their one-day cricket. And the rumour went round Jason Gillespie hadn't got the one-day skills to impart onto the England team. Now, he's won 2 World Cups, so clearly he's pretty good as a player. But they maybe felt that one-day cricket wasn't his strength, rightly or wrongly, and that Bayliss was better at one-day cricket. And Bayliss has had 3 or 4 years in the IPL, which I still believe is the sort of brainstorm of cricket, certainly one-day cricket, where all the kind of new ideas tend to come from. And if you've hung around there and been around the coaching staff and the players that play that format of the game, you're going to be very, very well versed in one-day cricket and how to make it move forward. For Bayliss, his big strength, and Barbara has mentioned this, is fielding, and how you can create this aura as a fielding unit, which is very important in one-day cricket. So those 2 areas maybe swung it for him.
The other interesting thing, because he's saying being in the dressing room, you wouldn't know whether about Trevor Bayliss, whether they were winning or losing. Duncan Fletcher was a bit like that.
Yeah, inscrutable. Yeah,
losing all the time.
I'm not.
It's very important. It goes back to actually the last line in that Farbrace interview, where I say to him, who's opening is it you or Trevor Bayliss who opens the sandwiches and tea? It relates to my very rude, probably, but slightly accurate description of coaches from the 1980s who I said all they do is they carry a bag of balls around and open sandwiches and tea. The trouble with the coaching staff, and I remember the guy here, Doug Paget, who was the coach of Yorkshire. I mean, they were severe characters. Don Bennett at Middlesex. They were pretty aggressive. They lost their temper all the time. They did naughty boy nets, and they whacked. If you played badly, they whacked catches at you so hard your fingers ached for days afterwards.
Prison wardens in charge of the convicts.
So you know that's how coaching has changed.
And did that have no effect at all?
You were scared of them.
Yeah.
You were scared of them.
Did that inspire them in any way, or not to make some mistakes?
It didn't inspire me at all. It was absolutely terrible.
There would have been 2 or 3 players in the dressing room who thrived under those conditions. But you know, I think we'll all agree, it's a general rule of thumb, that isn't the way to go about your business these days.
No, and exactly. So yeah, I mean, Trevor Bayliss is the opposite end of the spectrum, clearly.
Where did coaching start to evolve from that into what we have today?
I suppose Dave Bumble.
Professional era.
Bumble was the first that brought in. Bumble David Lloyd was the first that brought in a sports psychologist, a trainer, people like that. 97. So you know, more kind of attention to detail and more science.
Yeah, just 97, and they're getting towards the end of